Hidden in the folds of Mesopotamian history lies a mysterious group whose beliefs shimmered like the constellations they revered. Known as the Sabians, these enigmatic star worshippers once flourished near the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, where ancient Babylonian astronomers mapped the heavens and Sumerian priests interpreted omens written in the stars. But among the many tribes and religious orders of the region, the Sabians held a particularly curious position. Blending elements of Hermeticism, Babylonian astral religion, Gnostic traditions, and Jewish Kabbalah, the Sabians developed a complex, secretive system of thought that defied easy classification. It is this syncretic mysticism, rich with hidden meanings and celestial metaphors, that kept their teachings veiled in secrecy, passed down only to those deemed worthy of enlightenment. The origins of the Sabians are as elusive as the starlight they studied. Some scholars believe they emerged from Haran, an ancient city in northern Mesopotamia, modern-day Turkey, where for centuries a thriving tradition of star worship and Neoplatonic philosophy took root. Haran was a meeting ground of cultures. Nestorian Christians, Manichaeans, Hermeticists, and Neoplatonists all rubbed shoulders in its bazaars and temples. The Sabians, however, seemed to straddle a line between the sacred sciences of the East and the mystical threads of Jewish and Hellenistic thought. Islamic historians, notably al-Biruni and al-Masudi, describe the Sabians as astrologers and philosophers, often protecting them as people of the book under Islamic rule. Yet these same chroniclers often struggled to categorize them, as the Sabians worshipped celestial deities, followed planetary cycles, and participated in rituals far removed from Abrahamic orthodoxy. Their religious system was a kaleidoscope of ancient influences. At the heart of Sabian belief was the veneration of the 7 classical planets: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon, each imbued with divine essence and mythological character. These celestial bodies were not mere rocks or balls of gas in space. They were living intelligences, intermediaries between the unknowable source of creation and the material world. The Sabians believed that by understanding the movements, symbols, and alignments of the stars, one could ascend spiritually, purify the soul, and even gain access to hidden wisdom. Their temples were often aligned with specific constellations or planetary risings, and their rites included fasting, prayer, incense, and offerings corresponding to planetary days and hours, a system not unlike the practices later seen in Western ceremonial magic. But what truly distinguished the Sabians from other star cults was their infusion of Kabbalistic and Hermetic elements, which gave their beliefs an esoteric depth that paralleled the mystical traditions of Judaism and Egypt. The Sabians, like the Kabbalists, believed in a divine emanation, a transcendent source that flowed down into the world through layers or levels of reality. In Kabbalah, these are the Sephirot. In Hermeticism, they are the spheres of the celestial world. For the Sabians, the stars themselves acted as portals of divine influence, and the soul's journey back to the source required mastering the mysteries of these portals. They interpreted the heavens not only scientifically but symbolically, seeing in them the map of the human soul and the structure of divine truth. This syncretism made the Sabians deeply secretive. Their knowledge could not be handed out like public scripture. It required initiation, preparation, and purification. Their doctrines were encoded in symbols, cosmological charts, and sacred geometry, accessible only to those trained in their spiritual language. Outsiders might have observed the Sabians praying toward celestial poles or wearing robes marked with planetary emblems, but the true nature of their teachings remained cloaked. The blending of Jewish mysticism, often considered heretical by mainstream Judaism, with pagan astral religion, made them a target of suspicion. They walked a tightrope between orthodoxy and heresy, tolerated at times, persecuted at others. One of the most fascinating aspects of Sabian doctrine was its alchemical and metaphysical dimension. Drawing on the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. They believed that the stars influenced not only the material world, but the inner states of consciousness. Rituals were designed to align the initiate with planetary forces, cleanse spiritual impurities, and awaken hidden faculties of perception. The Sabians practiced a form of spiritual alchemy, transmuting the base elements of the soul into higher states through meditation, prayer, and astrological timing. They also studied mathematics, medicine, and astronomy, much like their Egyptian and Babylonian forebears, and were instrumental in preserving and transmitting classical knowledge through the Islamic Golden Age. Some of their texts, written in Syriac or Arabic, found their way into the hands of early Islamic philosophers and later European occultists. The term Sabian itself is shrouded in ambiguity. In the Quran, the Sabians, Sabi'un, are mentioned alongside Jews and Christians as people of the book, suggesting an ancient and recognized monotheistic tradition. However, later Islamic commentators struggled to identify who exactly these Sabians were. Some equated them with the Mandaeans, a Gnostic sect centered around John the Baptist and living in southern Iraq, who also venerated stars and practiced elaborate baptismal rituals. Others claimed the true Sabians were the Iranian philosophers, whose temple of the moon god Sin was a renowned center of astral worship. A few scholars even suggested that the Sabians were a deliberately constructed identity adopted by Iranian pagans in order to survive under Muslim rule by claiming scriptural legitimacy. Regardless of their official status, the true Sabians remained elusive, guarding their secrets in the shadows of minarets and under the veil of the stars. In a world increasingly dominated by exoteric religion and empirical science, the Sabians represented a living link to the ancient mystery traditions. Their worldview was one in which cosmos and consciousness were intertwined, where every movement of the stars carried divine meaning, and where human destiny could be charted in the heavens. They remind us of a time when religion was not divided into rigid categories, when philosophers were also priests, and when knowledge was considered sacred, dangerous, and transformative. Their rituals, which often took place in observatories turned temples, were attempts to harmonize the soul with the universe, a dance of microcosm and macrocosm. The legacy of the Sabians lingers in surprising places. Elements of their star-based mysticism found their way into Islamic astrology, Sufi metaphysics, and even Jewish Kabbalah, particularly in the mystical treatises that emerged in medieval Spain and Egypt. Their influence also reached into Renaissance Hermeticism, when scholars like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola sought to reconcile astrology, magic, and monotheism. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, and other esoteric societies of the modern era echo Sabian themes: the ascent through planetary spheres, the power of sacred names, the union of opposites. Yet despite their scattered legacy, the Sabians themselves faded from view, their temples abandoned, their manuscripts lost or hidden, their initiates forgotten. Today, to speak of the Sabians is to conjure a dream of a vanished world, a world where stars were gods and philosophy was a path to the divine. It is to remember the seekers who gazed upward, not merely for navigation or curiosity, but for salvation. The Sabians believed that to know the stars was to know oneself, and that hidden within the heavens lay the keys to unlocking human potential. Their story is not just one of ancient religion. It is a story of hidden knowledge, spiritual courage, and the enduring human desire to touch the eternal. As our modern world gazes once more toward the stars, through telescopes, space probes, and the language of mathematics, it is worth remembering that for the Sabians, the stars were not just distant suns, but divine messengers. Their legacy, like the constellations they adored, may be scattered and fragmented, but it continues to inspire. In the silence between constellations, the whispers of the Sabians still echo, that the universe is alive, that knowledge is sacred, and that the light of the stars is also the light within.